You know, Minneapolis is a weird market, but I think it's mostly in a positive way. And what I just really mean is you can drive 5, 10, 15 minutes and feels like you completely changed your lifestyle. And that's a problem for people moving into the Twin Cities. You look at places like Edina, Minnetonka, and Hopkins, and you think you're shopping for the same thing. You're not. That is the problem, and most of the mistakes people make when choosing a suburb, the problem is they don't show up during the showing. They show up after the first winter, after that school routine settles in, after commuting patterns become real. That's what this video is about. So that is really going to be the purpose of today's video. I am going to take you guys through the 6 mistakes that I see the most often. A lot of the time it is relocation buyers. Understandably, they are not familiar with Minnesota, but we're going to share them here with you in this video so you can hopefully avoid making these mistakes when you're picking out your next new Minnesota home. The biggest mistake I see by far, and especially from out-of-state relocators, is saying we want to be in the West Metro or the suburbs of Minneapolis. That is the number one mistake, and people will say that. We're looking for the West Metro as if it's a lifestyle. The thing you have to understand is the West Metro is definitely not a place. It is really a very wide range of very different daily realities. It is a conglomerate of a whole bunch of very different lifestyles is what we are trying to tell you here. For example, living in Edina, especially if you're near 50th in France or around the country club, means something very different if you are living in, say, Minnetonka on a very large lot where you're 10 minutes away from everything. Also means something very different if, say, you're living in Hopkins, especially near Main Street. Now, this behaves much more like a small town attached to a city. Contrasted to Plymouth, which is very close to Hopkins, this behaves much more like a classic suburban hub, newer homes, wider roads, more driving, feels like classic suburbia. Then you have Wayzata. Wayzata is lake-orientated, seasonal, ritzy, tourist influence, and socially very different from somewhere like Plymouth, which is its immediate next door neighbor. You get very different feels in all of these suburbs. And it plays up, or it plays out like this. It shows up when people will say, I want to be in a neighborhood or a suburb that's walkable. What they end up doing is they then buy a neighborhood where walkability means sidewalks, but you can't really walk to any destinations. Or they say they want quiet, and then they end up near a commercial corridor or in a place where school traffic patterns they didn't think through all the way. So we really want to help you guys think through these things and uncover some questions. I have seen buyers over the years move 5 minutes away from where they used to live, and it's affected how often they go out, how often they see their friends, how connected they feel to their community. That is not coincidence, that is a suburb that fits. My name is Chris, by the way. My contact information is all right here. It is also down below. Myself and business partner Trevor, this is what we do. We explore the Twin Cities and we help people like you make a move every single day. If we can help you, drop me an email, text, phone call, whatever works. Let's keep it rolling with our list. Mistake number 2 as it relates to moving to the suburbs of Minneapolis or the West Metro is going to be believing Google Maps, because I don't know if it's a he or a she, but Google Maps lies, and it lies consistently, and here's what I mean. So when people are telling me they are choosing a suburb around Minneapolis, one of the most common things they'll say is, according to Google, it's only about 20 minutes. And every time I hear that, I kind of shudder because there's just more to the story. Google Maps in Minneapolis and everywhere, it gives you a number. It does not give you the experience of what that drive is. And in a place like Minneapolis, the experience can matter a lot. First, a lot of the West Metro suburbs of Minneapolis understand a lot of these commutes run through the same pressure or choke points. If your drive involves I-494, Highway 169, Highway 62, Highway 100, I really try and give my buyers a good rule of thumb to test the commute. Try it once during a morning rush hour, once during an evening rush hour, and drive it on a bad weather day or during construction season. And if you are already rationalizing that drive during the test phase, if you are already doing mental gymnastics, that ain't gonna get any better after you move. In fact, it's probably gonna get worse. So, last thing people really underestimate is just how often they are going to make that move. It's not just work, it's daycare drop-offs, school events, errands, meetings, last-minute trips, all that kind of stuff. In summer, people tend to tolerate longer drives. In winter, when it's cold and dark early, tolerance disappears quickly. So commute friction is one of the most common long-term regrets I see in Minneapolis, and it's not because people are miscalculating minutes. It's because they misjudge how this metro behaves within seasons. Well, mistake number 3 is one I see all too often as well, and that is choosing a suburb for the schools without understanding the side effects, because there's going to be side effects. School districts matter a lot, of course, in Minneapolis and everywhere else, and people will hear that a suburb has a great school and they will latch onto it. It becomes the deciding factor, sometimes overriding everything else, even when it shouldn't. In the West Metro, strong schools, we've got a lot of them, but these strong schools almost always come with some very specific lifestyle trade-offs that people don't fully think through. What I mean, for example, when buyers prioritize schools, not always, but you will often end up with higher property taxes. Larger lots, more spread out neighborhoods, think like Minnetonka, fewer walkable amenities, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Plymouth, and fewer casual everyday destinations. Now, none of that is bad if that's what you knew you were getting into and signing up for, but I have worked with plenty of couples, and a lot of couples who do not have kids but are planning to have kids, who will choose a school-driven suburb because it feels like the smart move. We're adulting, we're planning ahead, we're thinking for the future, we're doing all the right things. But what they fail to consider is how that choice affects their day-to-day life right now. A lot of these West Metro suburbs with highly regarded school districts were designed around residential living. That means you're driving to coffee, restaurants, activities, even basic errands, okay? Minnetonka, Edina, Eden Prairie, 3 places with fantastic school districts in the West Metro. You're driving to coffee, restaurants, activities, even basic errands. Again, it's fine when you expect it. It's frustrating when you don't. On the flip side, of course, there are West Metro areas where the schools are solid. Housing stock is perhaps a little bit older or not quite as expensive. Lots are a little smaller and neighborhoods are more connected to daily amenities. Places like St. Louis Park, places like Hopkins, Golden Valley maybe. These areas come with more walkability, a little bit urban, a little bit more dense population, closer to businesses, more interaction. But they don't always get talked about in the way top school conversations do. And guess what? We have this thing called open enrollment. So I'm not going to say regardless of where you live, but to some degree, regardless of where you live, you can always open enroll into another school. One last thing here I think that people don't fully understand is how school boundaries can really affect housing choice. Twin Cities, West Metro, like school lines matter and they can sometimes come down to the block. You will have 2 homes that are a few streets apart and can feed into 2 different schools, and that will impact demand. It'll impact the resale, both the demand and the price of that home, and who your future buyer will be. Hopkins and Minnetonka is a great example of this. There are portions of the city of Minnetonka that are actually in the Hopkins school district. Minnetonka is renowned for its school district. So if you're an out-of-state buyer and you hear Minnetonka has banging school districts, so you go buy a house in Minnetonka, you could very easily go buy a house in Minnetonka that's in the Hopkins school district. So get some guidance, make sure you have some help with some of those things. If you are buying a home strictly on the school district, that is completely up to you. Just understand, especially the West Metro of Minneapolis, it's going to definitely dictate some lifestyle elements for you as well. Mistake number 4 is going to be a little bit similar to the school district thing. It's going to be buying the house you love without realizing what it requires from you. And this has to do with a few things. So number 1, it has to do with housing stock and how neighborhood design in Minneapolis' West Metro can quietly shape how you live, whether you intend them to or not. And here's what I mean. Buyers will tour a newer home or large house on a quieter street and everything feels right at the property. The layout works, the space works, the yard is great. But they don't always notice what kind of neighborhood that sits in, or maybe perhaps where it is. And a lot of these West Metro neighborhoods, I will tell you specifically, a lot of the newer construction stuff, some of these neighborhoods are intentionally inward facing, they're designed for privacy, and they are not designed for a much incidental interaction. So it can start to feel pretty quiet. Few natural reasons to leave your house. Now you contrast that to some older housing pockets around the metro where the housing stock sits a little bit closer together. Streets are more connected and daily life spills out more naturally. Neither is better, but they feel very different, and it's important that you understand which one you are signing up for before you purchase that home. Regret shows up like this. I've had buyers say, "We love the house, we just didn't realize how quiet it would feel." Not peaceful, quiet. The kind of quiet where you don't run into people. Neighbors keep to themselves and social interaction has to be planned. Some people love that. If you don't, that's not your jam, and you want to make sure that you're not ending up in a situation like that. So another big one we see here, this is from Minnesota, the West Metro 2, is yard size and maintenance. You want a big yard? Awesome. I hope you love raking, mowing, or hope you've got the money to hire someone, because point being, those are things you need to factor in. A big yard sounds great in theory. In reality, it definitely changes how your weekends here feel in Minnesota, especially when yard work season is compressed into that relatively short window. And I have seen people realize they have traded spontaneous weekends for maintenance without ever consciously even realize they were going through that trade-off. So the point here is none of these choices are wrong. It's that in Minneapolis suburb, the house type often dictates the lifestyle you're going to leave more than people expect. And if that was not intentional, it can feel like a major regret. So make sure the home you're getting sits where you want it to, and ask yourself, what is this house going to ask of me every day? Mistake number 5 is so obvious, I don't even want to bring it up, but it's also so obvious because it's so important if you are considering a move, not just to the West Metro of Minneapolis, but Minnesota. And the mistake is not asking yourself, now what does life feel like here in the middle of February? And this is one of the biggest mistakes, I'm sorry guys, my out-of-state friends make. They picture their life in their blissful Minnesota summer. Long days, green trees, lake life, patio, easy movement, and I would love to tell you guys that's the reality. But Minnesota is not a summer state. It's a winter state with a great summer. Dang, that pains me to say it, but it's true. And winters just change how suburbs and cities function. And here's what I mean. In some suburbs, when winter hits, daily life shrinks naturally inward. If there's no walkable core, no casual gathering places, no reason to leave the house other than errands, people start going out less, not consciously, but gradually. You start skipping quick trips, you bundle errands together, you skip that coffee or drink, you'll say we'll do it later, and before you realize it, your world has gotten smaller. So other suburbs handle winter better, not because they're better suburbs, but because of how they're laid out. Places where you can still walk somewhere meaningful, where there's a visible main street, a visible main area. Places like Hopkins wins here. Minnetonka doesn't win here. There is no main area. Or just where there's a sense of activity even when there's real cold. Frankly, if there's life going on. And the suburbs of Minneapolis can feel very different as far as lively and energy even in those winter months. So it seems like a real obvious one, but make sure you ask yourself, can I see myself living here in February? And make sure you make note of your surroundings. We're going to wrap this up with mistake number 6. And I think this is just sound real estate advice. I can't say this is super unique to the Minneapolis suburbs, but that is evaluating your move with the appropriate time frame. Like I hear a lot of, oh, this is our 3-year plan. This is a 5-year plan. This is a 5-year house. Life has a way of stepping up and frankly anchoring you to the ground. Jobs happen, stabilize, promotions, people lose jobs. Kids get into school system, sports, maybe you had another kid, interest rates, refinancing. All these things, timing, it makes moving less appealing. And before you realize it, your 3 years has become 5, has become 10, has become 15. And this is where those earlier decisions really start to matter, because a suburb that feels good enough for now can start to feel pretty limiting when you're there significantly longer than you ever intended. And I have had people say, had I known we were staying this long, we would have chosen differently. My friends, that is not regret. That is hindsight, and it's avoidable. So the point is not to predict the future perfectly. I don't think we can do that just yet. It is to assume that you will stay longer than you think and then choose accordingly. The people who are usually happiest long-term are usually the ones who plan for that possibility, even if they didn't intend on it. Make sure you are looking at your home at that suburb with the appropriate time horizon and plan for longer than you think. There you have it. If you guys found this video helpful, please give me a like. It really helps us. For me, the two that really stick out, especially if you're moving to Minnesota, number one is the Google Maps thing, because it's absolutely true. That commute, that drive in June versus February, Jekyll and Hyde, can be two completely different things. The other thing that sticks out to me really is the school district, just because I'm in the thick of it here in the West Metro, and understanding school district boundaries. Like I said, you could move to Minnetonka, think you're getting a great school district, and move to Minnetonka and end up in the Hopkins school district. So get some professional advice, get someone who can help you with that. If you guys have any questions on anything you saw in this video, questions, comments, and or even sarcasm, my contact info is here. It's also down below. Would love to help you guys out. Thanks again for watching. Like that video, and I will see you guys again real soon.